Age of Sigmar 2.0's first expansion is here. Milan Sorcery is here along with the rest of the Age of Sigmar releases for the second edition or 2.0. But was it necessary? Well, we're going to take a look at the box set, we're going to talk about the rules, and we're going to build all of the new little magical models that come in this beast for you today. I gotta admit, this is probably one of the coolest unboxing or out-of-box experiences I've had in a while with any product out there, especially from Games Workshop. Now, this is the Milan Sorcery Box. It's $75. It's out release week for the rest of the Age of Sigmar. It's going to come with 16 Citadel plastic miniatures that are in this resealable plastic bag, which was kind of cool. They're like the little shopping bags from the G-Dub stores. You get the Milan Sorcery book itself, which you do need because, well, I assume that using the spells, the Milan Sorcery realm specific stuff in here is going to be necessary to play Age of Sigmar, although I haven't got to look at the General's Handbook quite yet. The Milan Sorcery Assembly and a quick reference game aids right here. You guys know I love my game aids. Having these on top of the tabletop is way easier to play with instead of flipping and going back and forth inside of books. Now, the reason I like this out-of-box experience is because once you open this bad boy up and it's like a resealable Ziploc bag, I don't know if you use it again for anything except for maybe storing miniatures. You're going to see that it comes with all of the colored sprues, which are pretty neat. But I knew as soon as I saw these that these were easy to build casts or, sprue casts from China that we saw in the past. And sure enough, I looked at the box and it says made in China. All of this actually was made in China. The book was printed in China, all this stuff made in China. It says developed in the UK on the box, prominently on the back, but if you look at the bottom, definitely indicates all made in China. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, although at the beginning I was definitely on the fence and saying it was bad because the detail of the original Age of Sigmar sculpts for the terrain was pretty much terrible. Matter of fact, I definitely panned the bases, the very first 40k bases that came out with, because the detail on them wasn't that great either, although they are a great affordable solution to basing your miniatures as opposed to resin bases themselves. So, it's kind of like, well, which is important to you? Do you want good quality or do you want cheap? And they're kind of the best in the middle right there, but they're definitely something that I felt like maybe wasn't represented correctly on the box, which I definitely indicated in that video if you remember several years ago there. So that's what comes in the box itself. Now let's jump in and take a look at the quality of the miniatures, and from what you can see here, it definitely looks like their quality has gotten better. What we saw with the latest stuff from produced in China, so to speak. It is at a lower cost, and that's okay. And these are easy to build, but it's not at that terrible quality or lesser quality. I don't want to pan it too bad there. It's not bad. It's good quality for the price for this stuff here. That's it's going to be a little bit more harder to damage, although I wouldn't bend too very hard on some of these parts right there. But it's not going to be anything different than some of the ETB releases that we've already seen, or some of the later terrain, and obviously the Sector Mechanicum stuff that came out for 40k. So overall, I think the quality is good, and it's not misrepresented on the box or anything like that. Design-wise, I also like how they really seem to have put a lot of time and effort into making this work, where the Purple Sun model, you build up like an inside kind of superstructure and then attach all the parts to it right there. It seems to work pretty well, so I'm very happy with that, so to speak. And then just kind of looking through it, it's all very ETB on the back end. It looks like the Purple Sun's the one that takes the most time and effort right there with the Umbra spell portals. You just slot them into the base. Hey, that was easy. I like easy. So overall, it looks like the Gnashing Jaws and the Purple Sun are the hardest to put together. But again, we're going to show you that actually here in a second. I'm going to clip them all down, put them together, and let you know if there's any issues with them. But let's talk about rules now. Now, where I feel the value comes into play in this set is the sorcery book itself, because obviously G-Dub's making all of these spells become a thing in the Age of Sigmar, which I don't disagree with. I think that really brings it back to the old fantasy days, which is one of the biggest complaints that folks have is, oh, I really enjoyed fantasy, casting all the spells and everything. But what we didn't enjoy about 8th edition fantasy was that guy right there wrecking everybody with a low initiative. But it doesn't seem to be quite the case, although he will wreck monsters for sure. I'm going to keep my big ogre fatties far away from the purple sun as possible, or else they're going to be taking 2d6, and ain't nobody got time for that on the tabletop, that's for sure. So this book brings into play all of the data sheets and everything for the 14 spells. They also, I think 13 are new. They give you the one for the Vortex, which works a little bit differently now. And of course you get all of the game-made data cards or war scrolls in the sheet. In this set, which I think is pretty cool, 2 new pitch battles for playing like match play in here. Now I'm not sure if they're going to make it into tournament play or anything like that, because we saw the pitch battle, the 5 new missions in the back of the main rule book, one of which they redid the comment, which I thought was neat, and then they got the border princes all over again. It's really cool stuff. I'm definitely digging it. And you know, I throw out these open-ended questions like, hey, is it worth it? Is it this? Is it that? Age of Sigmar is dead. Obviously, I'm still playing this, guys. But it's good to look at things from an objectionable stance rather than just drinking the Kool-Aid, so to speak. Oh yeah, it's going to be the best. Well, why is it going to be the best? Why is it not going to be the best? Let's take a look, because we all know what happened with 40k. A year later, it's completely different. Do we want to go through that again with a second game? Me personally, no, I don't. I don't want to keep going through rules changes over and over and over again, and I think Games Workshop realizes that, because they've already said, we're only going to change the game twice. All right, back to this. Twice per year, you know, with the new FAQs. Back to this. Okay, so we've got narrative battle plans, which we're probably not going to talk about a lot. We've got the new war scrolls, which they do cost points, and those are in here as well. The background on them, talking about endless spells. But one of my favorite parts of this book is painting the endless spells, and it's really cool because they did a whole big feature on how to paint each and every one of them in here, which I thought was pretty neat. So you don't have to, you know, kind of wonder like, oh man, this is a lot of stuff, and I got to have these painted. I got to have the models to actually play with the spells. That really blows. You know, like these things are so big and so crazy. Like I could see where new hobbyists would get easily intimidated, but they have a whole section in here on how to do it and how to get some sick fades just using washes without the airbrush. Now, I may do a video comparing which one's easier, airbrushing or actually using the washes to kind of glaze it and do those sort of things right here. Don't know yet, but it's definitely on my mind to try to do. And then, of course, it goes into how the end spells work, etc., etc. You can attempt to dispel them at the top of each turn, so like the stay and play effects used to be for Warhammer Fantasy. You can attempt to dispel them when they are cast using the normal dispel rules, 30-inch range and such. Now you have to meet or beat it. Actually, I think you have to beat it. And removing them is when the predatory spells, which 9 out of the 14 are predatory spells, which means whoever's turn it is first gets a crack at moving them around the table using their normal fly modes and or whatever. You know, this one doesn't move, of course. I grabbed the wrong one. But like this one here moves, it flies up to 8 inches. So whoever gets the priority will get to move that. Now, if it's me and I don't want that running around the table like Purple Sun, depending on the positioning, you can theoretically just point it off the table and it runs off the table and dissipates. Now, the drawback to that is, of course, that your opponent can just cast another one on his turn. But again, you have a chance to dispel it if you're bringing mages, which you should, because it's all this crazy stuff. Why would you not? I gotta look at that for my ogre fatties, Beastclaw Raiders. And 2, you could try to take control of it and run it off the table. So it isn't always guaranteed. You can't cast the same one twice, but if it is still in play and you have another model, like you have another Purple Sun, you can attempt to cast another Purple Sun because you paid the points for it. All your wizards know it. You can cast it multiple turns, not the same time in each turn, but each turn you can cast one as long as you have a model for it. Now, maybe that's crazy. Maybe that's a little overreaching, you know, on Games Workshop's part to require you to have the model to actually play with it. And a lot of times, you know, this is a $75 set. I don't know if that's realistic. The rules as written, that looks to be the case right there. So kind of interesting little mechanic all the way around. And then, like I said, there's 2 specific battle plans right there. Or excuse me, those are the narrative ones. Then it goes into some, you know, realm of power. And I think there was a campaign, what was it, the old skirmish stuff. And then it gets into the spells of the realm. for each realm you could be playing in based on the rulebook itself. You get actual spells that your wizards will know, not counting the stay and play predatory doodadders that you have to have the models for. You can also get artifacts, and there's a whole bunch of different artifacts. Artifacts of power, you can choose to take either a relic or a weapon if you have the ability to take one in your army. Now, I don't have the General's Handbook. Again, I'm not sure if this is going to be allowed in the General's Handbook, but right now in the General's Handbook, you do get access to artifacts. You get one, and then if you take a battle plan, you get another one in a lot of cases. That's how it is now in General's Handbook 2017. So, will that be allowed in here? I don't know, but there's a lot. We're already seeing a little bit, just a little bit of clunkiness added to, or bloat kind of added to the pregame with all the different abilities you can get in out of the rulebook, and now with this expansion right here. I'm not saying it's good or bad because I haven't even played my first game yet. However, it is a lot of bookkeeping up front, but fortunately all of these resources are available to folks, you know, assuming that you pick up the expansion. Here's the pitch battle profile points right here, and obviously Purple Sun clocking in at the most points. The Vortex went down. I think it was 110. Now it's like 40 or something, because it doesn't exactly work the same. Although it does auto allow you to dispel something, and that would come into play if somebody tries to cast one of those dirty predatory spells. Definitely, you know, auto dispelling a Purple Sun would be pretty hilarious. Or just when it's your turn, you can also auto dispel it. It counts as one of your abilities that turn to be able to cast. I think it allows you to cast an extra spell, so that would count as casting a spell to auto dispel something that the stay in play predatory spell right there. So a lot of different things going on, and I think overall the value is right here as far as that goes. Now let's talk about a couple of spells real quick, and then we'll build up the models and get out of here. I do like, first of all, 5, like I said, 5 out of the 9 are not predatory spells, so that's just keep that into play. We already talked about Baer and Vortex and kind of how that works now. It's a little bit different. You can be targeted on it. It could even be dispelled. Your opponent could dispel it, and then it goes away, and your dude drops down, and then you can't auto dispel anything or anything like that. I do like the offensive predator stuff. I'm a fan of the Purple Sun. Obviously, does a lot of damage to the bigger squads themselves right here. That is something that's going to be noted, because if you have a wound characteristic of 6 or more, you are going to suffer 2d6 mortal wounds if it passes over you or ends within 1 inch of you. Oh, and let's talk about another very important rules mechanic that I think a lot of folks are overlooking. There is, in the rulebook itself, there's some very specifics wording on how movement works. There's 3 different types of movement in Age of Sigmar 2.0. There's normal move, which is just your normal move during your movement phase right here. During your normal move, you cannot be within 3 inches of an enemy model right here. Okay, that's nothing new. We knew that. However, there's a movement which occurs in the charge phase, which is your charge move. There's a movement which occurs during the combat phase, which is your pile in move. They specify all of that right here on page 229, or I don't even know, I guess that's page 2 or 3 of the new 18-page core rulebook. Now, something to be aware of is that these Predator spells move in the hero phase. So therefore, I guess, rules is written, you can move like a Purple Sun in the hero phase, because that's when they move, within 1 inch of multiple units. There's no restriction doing it being within 3 inches of any enemy model, except for the normal move with a model, which they don't have. You move it during the hero phase. So something to be completely aware of is that you get to move it as soon as it's cast, which again is in the hero phase. So you would get to drop it within 1 inch or end its move perhaps and do a lot more damage to things. And you can also do it during its compulsory movement, we'll call it, during the next hero phase, whoever has priority. So it can hurt you and it could hurt your opponent both the same, depending on positioning, of course, of all those combats and all those different things. So something to be extremely aware of at that point that I haven't really heard a whole lot of people mentioning quite yet. So Purple Sun's definitely at the top of my list. What was the other one? Oh, Chronomatic Cogs. I like this. I like this one right here. This one is going to allow you to advance. set this up with the effects opposite. Add 2-inch to move characteristics of all units on the battlefield. In addition, add 2 to charge rolls for all units on the battlefield. Just on the battlefield. All units on the battlefield whatsoever. It's just an ability. It just poof happens. Yes. My ogres love an extra 2 inches of movement and an extra 2 inches of charge to all units on the battlefield. I mean, yeah, they don't care either way. Like, we're charging you and you can charge us and we'll all get extra distance, and that's what we do, and we're gonna charge. Let's do it. So I'm loving that. Definitely trying to figure out how to work that one into my army. And then I did like the other one I think is definitely worth talking about is the Gnashing Jaws. I mean, a lot of folks are already talking about that one, but it does a lot of damage. It does D3 to every unit. It ends within 1 inch, and then of course any model that it passes across does that as well. So very, very interesting little thing right here. If you're playing in the realm of beasts, it does a little bit further of movement, no big deal. But you throw it out 6 inches and it moves 12 and can fly. All right, enough talk from me. Let's go look at some models. The models are all together, but we have a couple of gotchas to tell you about that may seem a little bit confusing when you're putting them together. So the Burning Head and the Malevolent Malostorm actually are on the same size base. They're on 50 mil bases, even though this calls for whatever E2 is, which I assume is a 40 millimeter base right here. You can tell from the profile that this matches once you get it together. Like, look at the profile, like that makes sense. Okay, that's about the same depth right there, even though they would tell you to put it on a 40 mil base, which it wouldn't look that deep. So if you get confused, there isn't enough 40 mil bases to go around. Here, let me show you this real quick. So this is GW site, and you can see here in the same picture, they look to have that on a 40 mil, but unfortunately there isn't that many 40 mils in the box right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That would be 10, but take a look at the sprues right here. There isn't 40 of them, or there isn't 10 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9, and there's 2 of these, and those have the center peg hole. Those are the only things that could fit it actually in the center. These are offset. So I think it was just a slight oversight on GW's part, but if you get confused, well, now you know kind of the solution. So model-wise, these things go together about as best as to be expected from a ETB push fit. We left these off so we could actually pull them out and redo the basing or put them on resin bases. I'm not exactly sure where we want to go with this yet. You will probably need a little bit of gap filler. Vallejo plastic putty is great for that, or you could use some of the thinner Tamiya or Tamiya, whatever you want to call it, liquid cement to get in there and kind of seal that up. This particular one, you make a superstructure on the inside, so you want to make sure that you squeeze the pegs together, and that way everything sits 100% correct. It's a little bit of a gotcha, but not too bad. And then we've got the smaller kits here that go together with the 1 or 2 pieces, the crazy spinny orb and the flaming ball of fire, burning, and the insects, which, you know, like I said, these are all about the same quality would you expect from easy to build 1 or 2 part kind of sprues, and lots of cat hair. Lots and lots of cat hair here in the studio. So I'm not too worried about it, and I think Games Workshop did or has done a great job over the past few years of really bringing up that quality. These will be fun to paint. Some crazy fire maybe, or like ethereal energy and like some mirror on the wall action right there will be pretty fun. The swords are a lot bigger than I thought. And actually these are on 40 mil, so let me show you this. So here's an Age of Sigmar model, or a Stormcast model painted by Elric's painting right there, and you can tell these things are definitely pretty big. Now this cog one I'm definitely going to be painting up soon because it gives really good rules to anything that's running. Here, check this out. This is how big the Purple Sun is compared to your normal Stormcast guy. Remember, this thing has to clear and can land within 1 inch of things in order to do damage. So you're going to want to be very careful about which way you orient this and even how you pick it up. I mean, it's literally the size of a baseball. It's kind of crazy. I suppose maybe it's a little bit, it's probably about a baseball. It might be a little bigger. I don't know. Either way, these things are ginormous. Here's the rolling poop tide from the grave. It's just like a bunch of dirt just kind of rolling in a wave. That looks pretty fun to paint as well. I can imagine it'll be really neat to just put a little bit of ethereal energy up there with a bunch of like crazy dirt and some metal right there from the floor. And the crystal labyrinth, the crystal fortress wall, that'll deflect things from your models. And two of these the orbs, I think this is like the realm of light and the realm of dark are meant to represent it or something like that. I don't know. Either way, they look great. And this thing here was probably one of the easiest ones. The El Chompy, the ravenous beast of awesomeness. And it's also on a large cavalry base, so it's going to be a little bit hard to kind of maneuver into places. So keep that in mind when you're doing it. And then how big it is compared to a Stormcast model. So it is pretty ginormous. I won't lie. Then you got the pendulum, which I could see some Demon Prince players or somebody like that wanting that for conversion, and a lot of the handcuffs right here. So they're all in all, like I said, you know, we just left them so you can pop them off and redo the bases. All in all, pretty well detailed for being that Chinese kind of quality plastic and cast, which is of a lower quality than the multi-part plastic that you and me both know from Games Workshop itself. But I mean, seems like it would cost a lot more to produce something like this using the normal plastic that we would do. And of course, I would imagine producing it overseas gives you a lot more flexibility in the amount you're able to order and the lead times and such. But what do I know? That's just me kind of spitballing as we go there. So that's about it for this one. I hope you enjoyed our look at the new Malign Sorcery. Is it necessary for your games Age of Sigmar? Well, I suppose it depends on what kind of games you're going to be playing, but I can imagine most people are going to bring some casters to the tabletop very, very soon. So if you like these type of videos here on the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you can be the very first to like and comment on all our videos.